It's 8 o'clock, this is the UK Tonight. Coming up, the sadistic online gangs infiltrating group chats that are used by children. The National Crime Agency has issued a stark warning about the growing unprecedented threat from internet communities dominated by teenage boys, with members manipulating young people into self-harm or sexual abuse. Also ahead, a major security breach in Washington, but the government says links with the White House are as strong as ever. It comes after the Trump administration inadvertently added a journalist to a group chat about plans to bomb Houthi rebels in Yemen. Today, the UK Armed Forces Minister told MPs the lives of British servicemen and women were not put at risk by the error. Plus, on a mission to clean up the River Thames, we'll hear from Olympic rowing legend Sir Steve Redgrave as he writes to the Environment Secretary and calls on the government to tackle pollution for profit. And find out what caused this glowing spiral to appear across UK skies last night. We'll speak to an astronomer a little later in the show. All that's come and much more on the UK Tonight. Well, we begin this evening with that warning from the National Crime Agency about a new, unprecedented threat to children online. Experts say sadistic and violent internet gangs are using chat groups to manipulate young people into self-harm or engaging in sexual abuse. Counter-terrorism, cybercrime and child sexual exploitation units are all involved in tackling this new threat posed by gangs of teenage boys, which are known as comm groups. The NCA says it has seen a six-fold increase in reports of comm-related crimes in the last 2 years. Just to warn you that this report from Adele Robinson contains graphic material and references to suicide.
This is an unprecedented threat. It's fast-growing. We're arresting and convicting. We just need to get the message out there and protect the public.
And even these ones here.
A sadistic and violent global network.
It's mostly children committing crimes against other children.
And among the worst, most depraved crimes imaginable.
Animal abuse and torture, child sexual abuse material, but also racist and occultist material.
Online gangs targeting mostly vulnerable girls.
She's still suffering some level of trauma from it.
Even infiltrating internet support groups.
He says she would be nothing but a mere soulless body once you're done with it. She will have given up.
Part of an emerging network Sky News has seen openly operating on social media.
It's not on the dark web, this is a clear open source threat.
A fast-growing threat the National Crime Agency is now prioritising.
It's a homegrown threat in our country and in other English-speaking countries, so that makes it significant.
The threat is known as the comm.
So the comm is a group, a network of networks.
One part promotes terrorism.
Different types of groups and different ideologies.
Another, child sextortion.
Some of the ones that we're seeing have 15, 16 victims under them.
Others, cybercrime.
This group would find ways to get their personal details.
But all of them connected, and most of them boys.
It's a way of having power over people when perhaps you don't have that in real life.
This is the police department. How can I help you?
Sky News has been given exclusive access to the National Crime Agency's investigations into the comm.
You have your parents locked up in the laundry room?
And what we're hearing is a well-rehearsed tactic by part of it.
Possible double shooting.
Fake calls to police in the US from all over the world.
They think that they shot their parents.
To terrorise young girls they control.
I'm trying to get someone who can call. I only know a few people that will actually call for me.
This British voice we've distorted is heard encouraging what's known as swatting.
They make a false claim to law enforcement with the aim of getting armed police to turn up at that victim's house. This was recorded by the suspect on his own computer. He's on Discord and he's talking to other members of the group, and between them they're all wanting to target a young female in the USA who's refused to go along with their demands to take her clothes off on camera.
And this was a UK offender to a US?
Yes, a UK-based offender from his bedroom doing this, which resulted in police being sent to a young girl's house in America.
Male screamed the address and hung up.
Was that you? Someone called them, screamed the address, and then just cut the phone. That's what they just said.
A way among many of manipulating victims.
The final thing was asking for nude pictures, and he'd also sent pictures to her and the self-harm as well.
Doing it to themselves?
Yeah.
Sally, whose name we've changed, found pictures on her daughter's phone.
So she was 11 years old into 12 because it was a whole year they were talking.
She'd met a boy on the gaming platform Roblox who'd then asked her to chat privately on messaging app Discord. Over time, things escalated.
I'm thinking that my daughter's safe in her bedroom and she's gaming. This is the kind of crimes that you would think happen on the streets.
Sally's daughter is a suspected victim of the comm. The police have been informed.
There wasn't any self-harm or anything in the beginning, and there was a lot of fantasy talk, and it was very like a game in a way, and it was like they were living in a fantasy life through the conversation.
She still doesn't really want to talk about it, so I know she's still suffering some level of trauma from it and a lot of shame.
The big dots here are the groups, and then each of the lines is a member between different groups.
Jordan's an open-source intelligence investigator looking into the network.
So some of them are like, they're happy to kill a cat, but they're not happy for someone to be extorting someone. So they have different dynamics.
And he's witnessed one of the darkest methods they use, infiltrating self-help groups online for eating disorders and self-harm.
Members of comm groups will look for people who are suffering through mental health disorders, eating disorders, self-harm, to try and recruit them into being able to make content for them. So that can be anything from cutting themselves with like brandishing certain names, and they will recruit from places and like online and forums.
And while we look, we come across something.
Already, like, this is looking suspicious anyway, asking, is the person the chat participants are talking about part of comm? Asking about the age of the participant, asking if they've ever cut for this person.
And then by chance, in a different comm group.
Oh. That's the guy from the other one.
That's the guy.
It's the same one in this group as
Yeah.
in the self-harm group.
This shows at least he's involved in comm. To see him also in the other group that we were looking at, which was on the outskirts, which is where it's like
self-harm.
the self-harm group, is interesting because he's going to be one of these people, like when I showed you on the graph, the links between comm and these other groups. He's one of those links.
Which is in itself very suspicious.
Which is suspicious in itself.
So this is another example of a UK offender extorting and blackmailing one of their victims.
And for an insight into these groups, a National Crime Agency investigator.
The victim's 11?
Yeah, so the victim's 11 and the offender's saying that they're going to pretend that she isn't 11. It says you have like 5 e-girls already. So that's mentioned e-girls. So these are another term for victims, those that are, if you like, under the offender. So controlled by the offender. So offenders will have multiple victims.
It's the imbalance of power within this one chat.
It is, and people will place claim and they will say you can have her for, or you can have them for X amount of money.
Most of the offenders are boys between 11 and 18 years old, often using gaming platforms like Roblox and Discord to lure young girls into private conversations.
Young males under the age of 18 that have a substantive online presence on both social media and gaming platforms, but will have no real social life. And they also follow some different areas as well, so you'll see some sharing extreme materials around the incel ideology, animal abuse and torture, child sexual abuse material, but also racist and occultist material.
And in their groups, they collaborate, even compete to cause harm.
One of the suspects, he admitted that he would get very angry, and he sort of said he wouldn't ever go and start a physical fight with someone, but he can go online, and that's what his strength is, and he can use his online skills to hurt people without ever having to leave his bedroom.
Keeley then shows us this disturbing post giving public tips on how to target and coerce.
So in this particular comm group, in this case, there was a clear leader of this group, and he posted a blog post online, basically coaching others to do what he did. He says she would be nothing but a mere soulless body once you're done with it. she will have given up.
He's talking about children here.
Yeah, young girls, that's who he's targeting.
What's it like for you doing this every day?
This is the worst one I've dealt with. I definitely have dreams about it. I've had a lot of dreams about it. For me, it was actually worse reading chats between people because you can imagine what's going on rather than seeing, and sometimes that was worse.
Sky News has seen the Com network openly operating on social media. Content sent between users, among them disturbing images of self-harm we're not showing. These are messages that we have found from live and active Com groups, either openly discussing their methods or sharing explicit material. This one talking about going on Roblox and forcing women to give us their Discord so that we can blackmail with their nudes. And this one advertises a video of a victim self-harming. But there were also a lot of groups and channels which had been deleted. What we're seeing here is this network adapting by creating and signposting to other servers and chats. As soon as it's shut down, it just pops up elsewhere.
That's it.
But arrests are being made and offenders convicted in the UK.
This one down. You got anything on you shouldn't have?
Cameron Finnegan was jailed for offences relating to the Com, possessing a terror manual, indecent images of a child and encouraging suicide.
The only risk I was concerned about is that if she went through with it and I got caught.
So you're concerned about, the only thing you're concerned about is if she went through with it and you got caught, not about whether she was dead or not.
I don't think about stuff in that moment. It's just stupid I say without thinking.
I'm going to explain to you why we've arrested you, okay?
Yeah.
So, in January of this year, we believe that you shared indecent images of under 18s.
Another member of the Com also convicted last month, Richard Ahaimir, for making indecent images of children.
We can promptly and effectively investigate.
The longer they go on operating in this sort of way, the more likely it is we will catch up with them. The internet has a long memory, and so do we.
The National Crime Agency has seen a six-fold rise in reports of Com-related crime in the last 2 years, and it's now a priority.
It's just like in the physical world, we would recognise that there are parts of a city that you wouldn't let your children wander through at night. And so there are a mixture of obligations on, building owners, the police force, the local council, and you as a parent, and perhaps the school. So on the online world, we need to be understanding what our sort of responsibilities and obligations are and all playing our part together.
Would you say then you are satisfied with everything that these online platforms are doing to remove the Com content and really do their bit on this?
No, I think they do need to be doing more. To be honest, there's a mixture of different companies that have a very different attitude to social responsibility in this place, for starters. And then even the ones that are doing some of the best, I think, can look harder at the nature of the ecosystems that they are enabling.
Telegram, Discord and Roblox all say they have dedicated teams proactively detecting, removing and banning Com groups and content. Telegram said millions of pieces of harmful material are removed daily and they've continually monitored so groups cannot re-emerge. Discord said the group's horrific actions have no place on Discord or in society. They collaborate closely with law enforcement and will continue working relentlessly to tackle it. Roblox said as well as proactively removing content, they're also engaging with law enforcement worldwide, and its efforts have been recognised officially to combat extremism. Not just here in the UK, this is a global challenge, with the FBI and Europol both issuing alerts.
It's a way of having power over people when perhaps you don't have that in real life.
But to truly tackle this growing threat, it must be understood.
That's what's really worrying about games. It's just access to your home, which makes it feel like your children are out on the streets with strangers.
To reconnect those most vulnerable to society.
I think the really key message is to try to have meaningful conversations with your children. The risk is that we somehow think of time spent online as being safe time. It's within the house, but it really isn't necessarily safe at all.
Oh, well, Adele is with me now in the studio for more on this. And Adele, this is such a timely conversation, isn't it, about safety online? And what's been uncovered here is the worst of the worst. And just as you were touching on there, in fact, your interviewee said it there, the internet has a long memory and so do we. The NCA know this problem is there, they're investigating it, they're aware of it. But talk to me about the challenges, because as we were hearing in your report there, it's all such a complicated web. What are the challenges in catching the perpetrators and getting some kind of prosecution?
I mean, there's multiple challenges for them. I think their messages to parents is they don't want them to panic, first of all. They're aware of this threat. They are using this as a public announcement so that parents are aware. But of course, this is the extreme, as you say, the absolute worst crimes. And they know about it, they are arresting, but what they're really trying to do is to get parents and teachers and health professionals to start to sort of really know about it, look for signs. And quite simple, really. They talk about this whole society approach, but get parents to have a conversation with their children. That's the kind of biggest, strongest defence you could probably have as a parent, to have that open dialogue, to try and find out what they're doing and talk to them about it and be that safe space. But with regards to the challenges, one big one is the fact that these are children. It's not just the victims, the offenders are children. And so you have the almost ethical and legal dilemmas that some of these victims are becoming offenders themselves as well. So what do you do with terms of prosecution and dealing with, there's many issues over safeguarding. The other thing is the fact that I mentioned there, that you can tell from that report, there's no single ideology, there's no single leader to pin this on. They're not serving one particular person. There's some adults involved, but they aren't necessarily leaders. It is mostly children. So to sort of pin it down to one thing, it's incredibly difficult. And in that vein, it's constantly evolving and spreading, and people are leaving groups and they're popping up elsewhere, as I said, and to sort of really keep a handle on that is tricky. But
and the goal is harm, isn't it? There's no one overall goal in terms of it is a crime, but it doesn't feel like a tangible crime. It's to do people harm, isn't it? And that's the hard thing to get your head around.
It is, and these boys, obviously, because it is mostly boys, they are doing the most horrendous things in these worst case scenarios because they are the most horrendous things. And they, of course, are, they themselves have almost become radicalised into this. They've been desensitised to this. And, they've come at it, or they've come across this material. They're part of this community at a time in their life when they're trying to find their identity. They're vulnerable in themselves at the very beginning point where they become into contact with these. They find a community where they are respected. And I think it brings you back to what the National Crime Agency was saying as well, is that this layer of misogyny is there. It's not just about that, but that is there, this lack of respect for girls. But more than that, because this is so extreme, it's the idea of nihilism, this disregard for human life, which feeds into so many different things. And the groups as well, the dynamics, they all have different lines. They turn on each other. It's chaotic. And to try and really get across that is incredibly challenging. But of course, they are trying, and so are Europol and the FBI. It's a global effort.
Yeah, as you said, you don't want to be alarmist about this. This is the extreme end of the scale. But as you ended your report there with that caution to parents to treat the phone, the iPad, the gaming console as a window into the world. It's like inviting strangers into your home. So just to be aware of it and have those meaningful conversations.
Absolutely.
Adele, thank you. I know you've put a lot of hard work into that, and it's a really difficult subject for you and your team to go through, as well as the professionals that do it as well. Adele Robinson, thank you. Well, if you have been affected by that story that Adele has brought to us, you can contact the Samaritans anytime, 116 123, their email, joe@samaritans.org. Well, next tonight, breaking news on the war in Ukraine, with Kyiv and Moscow agreeing to a ceasefire in the Black Sea. Russia and Ukraine say they have agreed to halt military attacks to ensure safe navigation. But the Kremlin wants sanctions on a number of export companies and shipping to be lifted.
They agreed to something and it got broken. There's tremendous animosity. There's a lot of hatred, as you can probably tell. And it allows for people to get together, mediate it, arbitrate it, and see if we can get it stopped, and I think it will. that'll get stopped. We have other countries involved, and they're involved very strongly in the process, and that'll be resolved. That's actually, as bad as it is, that's the least of the problems. So we'll get that resolved, and we are being aided by other countries too.
Our Security and Defence editor Deborah Haynes joins me now. So Deborah, this is big news on the truce deal. Put it into context for us.
Well, it's big news that they have agreed to something, but what that something is still not clear, and the guns have not gone silent by any means. Yes, there is an agreement, it seems, on some kind of ceasefire in the Black Sea, but the Kremlin immediately then came out saying that this would only come into force after a suspension of certain sanctions for part of its banking sector. And when it comes to the actual attacks in the Black Sea, it's the Russians that have got a big fleet there, not the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians have been inflicting large damage on Russian ships. Yes, of course, it would be relief for Ukraine to be able to have less risk to commercial shipping, taking out the grain. But until the fighting in the Black Sea actually stops, nothing has stopped. So yes, President Zelensky is saying it's a step in the right direction, but there's still a long way to go.
Deborah, this news comes after that massive security breach that happened in Washington.
Absolutely extraordinary, this breach by Donald Trump's top security officials. The president himself has been asked a lot about it and has been playing it down, dismissing it as a glitch and not a serious one. But what happened is basically Mike Waltz, the national security advisor, it seems that somehow his device, his device did create a chat group on a messaging app called Signal, which is the sort of device that you can use for encrypted chats, but you would not use ordinarily for highly sensitive classified information. What it appears happened is that he set up a Signal group with other top officials, including the Defence Secretary, the head of the CIA, the Chief of National Intelligence, and a whole load of other top security officials, and as well, by mistake, added a journalist, the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. And he then, Jeffrey Goldberg, released a story yesterday which outlined in great detail what happened in this breach, where he didn't believe at first that what he had been included in was a legitimate discussion. They were talking about a plan to attack the Iranian-backed Houthis in Yemen. But as he watched what was being said and then what was being broadcast a couple of hours later on the news, he realised that it was actually live planning. Now, the American security top officials have been speaking as well to the Senate and saying that, downplaying this, saying that they don't believe classified information was revealed. But there has been a huge outcry, not just across America, but globally, with American allies privately horrified as to what has happened, and no doubt America's enemies very gleeful.
Deborah, thank you. Deborah Haynes there in central London for us, reacting to the news coming out of the United States today. Let's get more now. I'm joined by former chair of the Joint Intelligence Committee, Baroness Neville Jones. Good to see you this evening. Thank you for joining us on the UK Tonight. Can I just ask for your initial reaction when you heard about this leak in Washington?
I think, first of all, astonished. Followed by horrified. It is extraordinary and frankly pretty worrying. I think worrying if it really were, the only thing that had happened of a kind which undermined confidence and trust since this administration had been in office. You might accept that, well, this is a glitch and a one-off. But it does come against the background of a lot of other things that have rattled confidence in the relationship. And trust in American intentions. And of course, alongside information that the journalist responsibly didn't reveal, the actual planning, there were these unattractive and comments about the Europeans again, which when you put that against what I think you have to say is a disregard for human life. I mean, the American servicemen will have been going into action after this conversation took place, which shows a degree of contempt for their safety and their lives. And if you can do that, if you're prepared to do that in relation to your own forces, it will worry your allies. The extent to which the Americans are going to care about the safety and the lives of anybody who engages in an allied operation with them. Yeah. So I do take it seriously. I think this is something that the Americans really do need to take some action to reassure their allies it's not going to happen again.
But the problem is the Americans don't seem to be taking it as seriously as perhaps you are this evening. In fact, President Donald Trump, when asked about it earlier, said it's a non-issue. It's the media, the mainstream media, weaponising this mistake. The White House official line is it's a distraction.
Well, I think, they wouldn't they? Because, they do need actually they're not going to own up to the fact they've made actually a pretty serious error. What we don't know is what's going on in private and what's being said to the allies in private. But even so, my view is that this is the kind of thing that people do remember. So there will be more caution. And remember, this is also against the background of what Europeans are also trying to do to make a contribution to bringing about a ceasefire in Ukraine and potentially being involved in its policing. It's a condition, I think, for Europeans that there should be an American backstop. But we will need confidence, that these obligations are going to be honoured.
Yeah, but the UK came out today and said, they are confident that any intelligence they share with the United States is secure. So they're not sort of ruffling any feathers in the United States about this. President Trump has backed Mike Waltz, saying it's a glitch that he will learn from. And, he's even challenged the journalist who was invited into that chat group to release the documents that he held back, because... This is not,
however, the exchange of intelligence. This is actually a military operation, that was broadcast around this circuit, outside normal military communications, and indeed probably outside the normal circuit, which would have included the military. So this is actually potentially putting at risk, people who are going to be serving your national interests and serving the United States, who may be put at greater risk. So this is not trivial stuff. It's a separate issue, though related to the whole question of obviously the safety and the security and the good and proper use, which is a separate issue of intelligence material which is exchanged. This is not directly involving that, and the services of the countries involved, will, I'm sure, continue, the professionals, to take proper safeguards. But it doesn't provide a good political background against which politicians and leaders have to take decisions about the way in which their own forces may be involved. So it does repercuss, because it isn't just at the professional level, it's also at the political level that this has effect.
Barrister Neville-Jones, really good to get your take on that developing story from Washington this evening. Thank you very much for your time on the UK Tonight. Pleasure to talk to you. Thank you. Still to come on the programme, we'll be speaking to Olympic rowing legend Sir Steve Redgrave as he calls today for an end to pollution in the River Thames.
What's it like doing this kind of stuff when he's not here?
Yeah, I miss him. He just inspired me to be a better person. He's shown us what living looks like in the toughest and most difficult of circumstances.
I'm Greg Milam, and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
Mandatory evacuation, you must leave!
For many people, Harvey is far from over. People here believe the water will be this deep for weeks. I've reported from around the world and around the UK. It isn't what politicians see from election battle buses, but what ordinary people see from the buses that shape the timetable of their lives.
I feel like there's no trust between the people and the politicians.
Labour's going to get in definitely, and they're no better than the Conservatives.
It is almost impossible to predict where these fires will go next. Ida has certainly left its mark on New Orleans.
It just feels heartbreaking.
Cartels in Mexico are flooding America with the drug. We are standing on the supply line right into the heart of America's opioid crisis. This gives you an idea of the strength of those winds, strong enough to bend and twist metal. Sky News, the full story first. Christchurch has been changed forever by what happened here.
There was a river of blood coming out of the mosque. That's a scene that you don't forget.
Are you trying to run me over, Sir Philip?
No, go away.
Look like it, sir. Will you respond to those who made accusations, Sir Philip?
Can you go away?
Very good morning to you all. Morning.
Do you regret the tweet, Gary?
There's no sign, publicly at least, of either side being willing to give ground. Brianna's dad told Sky News what he thinks of them.
If I'm honest, I hate them. They're just evil. They'll always be monsters.
Free wherever you get your news. How do you reassure the public that all of these mistakes wouldn't be made again?
God forbid we should have to do this again.
Sky News get the full story first.
Is this now all your territory?
Yeah. The battlefield is outside the barricades. We are in the middle of a forest, in a jungle really, and they're attempting to keep these men alive. I'm Stuart Ramsey, and I'm Sky's chief correspondent. It's really dangerous. Many people have died riding it.
So Steve Redgrave is calling on the government to pressure water companies to do more to clean up pollution in the River Thames. The five-time Olympic gold medalist has warned it may soon be too unsafe to stage boat races on the river. Well, we can speak now to Sir Steve. Good to see you. You've grown up on the banks of the Thames. You were born near there, rode on there. You're really angry about this issue, and you've written a letter to the Environment Secretary. What did you say in it?
It is really sort of getting to grips with the issues that they are, is that the water companies throughout the whole of the UK are giving licences by the government to be able to put effluent into the rivers. And it's a bit scary. I started rowing back in the 70s, and we're asking them to get the rivers back to where it was in the 70s and 80s, and that's a horrific way of doing it. We had the schools head of the river today, which is over the boat race course. Actually, they row in reverse. Over the last 4 weeks, we've had over 10,000 athletes rowing over that course. And even from the beginning of the year, Thames Water have put in 133 hours of untreated sewage into that stretch of the water. Throughout the whole Thames of this year so far, 785 hours of untreated sewage. And it's not what we would expect, is that we love our country, we love our countryside, we love our waterways, and it should be of clean.
Yeah, the River Thames not alone. Rivers and lakes, streams, coastal waters in this country. You know, so many communities affected. The River Thames is your local river. Just how bad is it? Would you get in it now?
I wouldn't. I don't row any longer, but I do go out canoeing every now and again. And I live in Marlow in Buckinghamshire, and we have Little Marlow of sewage works. And when they're discarding their untreated sewage, it is horrible. There is a chevron of brown muck that's coming out that you can definitely see. And the smell is horrible. I'm not a very good canoeist, so I tend to fall out every now and again, and I grit my teeth and make sure that I don't fall out below that outlet. It's horrible to see, and our country should be better than this.
Well, that's the advice, isn't it? I know when I've done interviews before the Oxford-Cambridge boat race, every year now it seems that those rowers are being told if they fall in not to swallow the water, to put plasters on their cuts. And of course it makes headlines because it's one of the most famous boat races in the world. But this has been a problem for some time now, as you said. The government response, of course, they are doing something. There's the Water Act. That will take time. We've had a response from Thames Water as well, which perhaps we can get you to respond to, Sir Steve. They said over the next 5 years, we will deliver a record amount of investment to address our ageing infrastructure. This includes £1.8 billion to improve river health in London. We're also continuing to execute our plans to upgrade over 250 of our sites across the region to lower the number of storm discharges. We're committed to seeing waterways thrive, but we can't do it alone. Increasingly extreme weather is also playing a role in river health. What's your reaction to that, Sir Steve? It sounds like they say they're doing something, but it's going to take time.
I must say that I've given my letter of complaint this morning to Emma Harding, the Water Minister. She was absolutely fantastic and talked a very good game. But it's not about talking, it's being able to deliver. Our water chiefs get paid extremely well and they get huge bonuses. Shareholders, and I don't have any problem with private companies, but surely you get dividends and bonuses when you perform really well, not really badly. And our water companies are performing really badly. So Thames Water, I know that they're trying to do the right thing. This climate change that talk about of our change isn't suddenly creeped up on us. We've known this for a very long period of time. We get hotter weather and we get colder weather and we get a lot of rainy weather. It's not a surprise, but they've just uninvested for a long period of time and they need to get to grips. And what Emma was talking about today, and he's going to draw up a plan for me, is actually of putting a plan together of what the water companies are going to do, when and where and how over a period of time. Governments possibly can change in 4 to 5 years, and there's got to be a very fixed plan. So I'm giving this government, where past governments have kicked the can down the river and have let it go by, is I'm giving this one all credit that they're trying to do the right thing, but the proof is in the delivery of it. And so it's down to them to make sure. And if Emma does come up with her words of giving me this detailed plan of what we're going to achieve, then us, the public, can keep our government to count on this. That our government has got to keep the water companies to account on it as well.
What's the fear if the government don't get their act together? Messing about on the river, you know, it's a great British tradition, whether you're an amateur or a professional. What's the fear if they don't sort this out?
Well, it's not just about rowing. Is rowing spends most of its time on top of the water, not in it. We've got canoeists, we've got sailors, we've got paddle boarders, we've got
some brave swimmers.
I know a few rowers that have had stomach bugs from picking up of horrible bugs from the water, but I've got a number of friends that open water swim, and quite regularly they get stomach upsets and put them off their training and enjoyment of the river for weeks on end. And we've got to draw a stop to this. Is that our country back in the 70s and 80s were looked upon Europe as trailblazers of how good our water was out of our taps and our waterways. And now we're a laughing stock of Europe because their waterways are so much better than ours.
Yeah, it really is a public health issue, a public health emergency, I know many people would say. So, Steve, while we've got you, I do have to ask you about a story we're covering here on Sky News today. World Athletics to introduce mandatory sex testing for female competitors. Lord Coe saying it's a really important way of providing confidence and essentially protecting women's sport. I wonder if you've got a view on this proposal today. I'm all for it. That my wife competed at the '84 Olympics as a rower, and they had to be sex tests. They were very disillusioned with that. Why do I have to prove myself as being a woman? We don't want people cheating, and people should be in the right categories. And women should be competing against women, and everyone else should be in an open category. So, Steve Redgrave, always good to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time this evening, raising awareness of the state of the rivers in the UK, particularly the River Thames, your local waterway. Really good to talk to you tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now to a story we've been covering on the programme a lot recently, the shocking rise in suicides of domestic abuse victims. Following a report by the National Police Chiefs Council, leading authorities have promised to pursue more manslaughter charges after a victim's death. The report also found the majority of suspects in domestic abuse cases where the victim has taken their own life are known to the police. A warning that this report from our correspondent Molly Malone does contain references to suicide.
Kienna Dawes, Kelly Sutton, Jessica Laverack, 3 young women who took their own lives after a history of domestic abuse. It is a tragic trend, as a new report shows suspected domestic abuse suicides have become more common than being killed by an ex or current partner. Deborah Jones runs a charity in Barnsley, working with domestic abuse victims from across the country.
We've got a lot of women that come to us for support, and I want to say that 90% of them have had suicidal thoughts. Once they've reported something that is happening to them, they're not being protected.
We joined a support session. Victims' identities were disguised to protect them. As we talked, they described the relentless torment of their abuse, being dismissed as mentally ill and feeling like they've run out of options.
We've been here for a couple of hours now, hearing from people with experience of domestic abuse. Many say they felt completely helpless. They've described feeling isolated and alone, and that they're being passed between systems and services that all fail to help them.
At Cheshire Police Headquarters, the team here work to review deaths that happen in a domestic setting. Their job is to identify the factors that can lead to suicide and help agencies improve their response to domestic abuse.
Coercive and controlling behaviour is by far the highest risk indicator for domestic suicide.
Do you think there's an understanding of what coercive control is?
I think it can be difficult.
Police say a relationship ending is another risk factor because the victim might be alone, making them feel vulnerable, while a perpetrator can become persistent.
They just want to make the lives a misery.
Just relentless.
It is, yeah.
While out with an officer doing welfare checks on victims that have protection orders in place, we saw how.
What do you think would stop him doing it? What do you think would stop him contacting you?
I don't know, really.
Do you think they work?
No, nothing works, not even this restraining order.
In the majority of domestic abuse suicides, either the suspect or the victim had been known to the police and to other agencies.
Do you accept things are going to have to change with policing, with other authorities, if we're going to stop people from taking their life after domestic abuse?
There's an awful lot for us all to do, and we were really, really keen that we work together to understand how we can prevent these sad deaths.
The government say change is needed, but accept it won't come quickly.
I wish that I could say that I will make every social work response brilliant overnight, that I will make every police officer response brilliant overnight. What we have to do is look at the fundamentals of the systems of prioritisation on things like domestic abuse.
It is a system which victims feel is failing them. Police are promising progress, but everyone agrees what's needed is coordinated action to prevent future deaths.
Well, Molly's with me in the studio now. Molly, what needs to change here to be effective?
I think speaking to victims what you hear time and time again is nobody wants to catch me. So you're passed, they say, between services and systems, and no one, be that mental health services, be that police, be that the NHS, wants to catch them, wants to take accountability and really prevent domestic abuse suicides from taking place. And that might be not wanting to take accountability or not knowing which service to refer them onto. And so many victims feel that they're just being passed, in their words, from pillar to post with no responsibility being taken. And actually that makes them vulnerable and in some cases leads them on to taking their own lives.
Yeah, and I know we've spoken to a number of families affected by this on Sky News, because after their loved one has taken their own life, the burden is on the families, and they're not in financial positions to fight this, to gather the evidence, to sort of knock on the door of the police who, as you said, you know, they they put it down as a suicide. They don't need to investigate any further. There are so many challenges to the families at the moment, and they want some of those challenges removed, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that was something that came up this week. We heard from Louisa Rolfe, the Met Police Assistant Commissioner, who's the most senior policing lead for domestic abuse. And she's saying in these cases, families are feeling like they need to investigate themselves, and that's just absolutely wrong. So police are clear that they want to change things. But what was also clear in this report is the very extent to which the perpetrators and sometimes the victims are known to authorities. So in 92% of cases across the 4 years that police have been recording domestic abuse suicides, the perpetrator or suspect was known to police.
They already have a body of information.
Exactly. And in 79% of cases, either the victim or the perpetrator was known to what they call a partner agency. So that's mental health services or domestic abuse specialists. So really quite damning evidence. And the police say what's needed really is coordinated action between all of them to prevent this from happening in the first place.
OK, Molly, thank you. Molly Malone there with that report. And if you've been affected by that story, you can contact the Samaritans. 116123 is their number. Contact them at any time. Or you can email joe@samaritans.org. Coming up on the UK tonight, is it a bird? Is it a plane? That's obviously not either of those. So what is it? We'll tell you what caused this glowing spiral to appear across the UK last night. And will Liverpool's Trent Alexander-Arnold be joining Jude Bellingham at Real Madrid? We'll have all the sport for you next.
The Premier League run-in is live on NBC and Peacock as City Pride is on the line with a pair of iconic derbies.
It doesn't get any better.
April 3rd, it's a London derby. Chelsea.
Beautiful goal from Chelsea.
Spurs.
What a game.
April 6th.
Brace yourself, Manchester, for the mother of all derbies.
United.
In the place.
City. The Premier League run-in is live on NBC and streaming on Peacock.
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being forced or pushing young men and women to the ground as they made almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry. It is an anti-woman agenda.
Sky News, get the full story first. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Can you beat Donald Trump, Governor? President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Are you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Free wherever you get your news.
Excited.
I've had severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
Hello, welcome back. Coming up, we'll tell you what caused a glowing spiral to appear in the night sky across the UK. We've got an astronomer coming up for an expert view, but first, Teddy's here for his expert view on the sport. And we're talking about Liverpool right-back Trent Alexander-Arnold, who I was reading today has been at Liverpool since he was 6 years old.
Little boy.
So he's been there for 20 years, and he might be going this summer abroad.
He might be going abroad to Real Madrid, following in the footsteps from a few years ago of Steve McManaman and Michael Owen, homegrown talents at Liverpool, moving over to Real Madrid. Yeah,
you're going quite way back there.
aging myself with that. But Sky Sports News, we're reporting today Real Madrid are progressing with talks over signing Trent, who is out of contract in the summer after 20-plus years at the club, 349 appearances. He's made more goal chances than anyone but Kevin De Bruyne since he made his debut. That's from right-back, so he's very revolutionised the position. He's the most attacking, creative player in their team, setting up Mo Salah more than any player in that era, who may also be leaving. So after, I guess it was a pretty tough international break for Liverpool fans after they went out of the Champions League to Paris Saint-Germain, then lost the Carabao Cup final to Newcastle, and great for Newcastle. They've been stewing on that. Now the news that possibly Trent is inching closer, although we've been told it's still to be sorted. No guarantee he will be a Real Madrid player, but a big law of 15 times champions of Europe, all the Galacticos that have been there, all the glamour, all the players there now, including Kylian Mbappe and his friend, England star Jude Bellingham as well.
It's interesting, isn't it? You bigged him up there about how he's revolutionised the right-back, being such a key player for Liverpool. So it's quite controversial with the fans, isn't it, in terms of they could be losing a really good player on a free. I'm sure a lot of fans will be thinking he should have gone for a fee. But then there'll be other fans thinking, maybe, good on him. He's given us 20 years and he wants to go and pursue this dream. So what is the reaction amongst the Liverpool fans?
Well, it's funny because Jamie Carragher grew up obviously an Everton fan, became a Liverpool star, very much a Liverpool fan now. And he's kind of outlined this, that in the sense of, do you want to be a Steve McManaman or do you want to be a Steven Gerrard? McManaman went to Real Madrid, was welcomed in, almost given freedom of the city and very much cherished by them. But by the contrast, Steven Gerrard's one of the legends of all time. That may be an unfair comparison. People could argue that Gerrard, in terms of his talent, was perhaps maybe above McManaman. He was a great creative dribbler. But I think there is an issue there, although the other line is to say that he's won the Champions League with Liverpool, he's won the Premier League, ended 30 years of hurt.
Did he say something controversial, like I'd rather win the Ballon d'Or?
That was in an interview with Sky. He backs himself. He does say that there's not a pass. If he sees a pass, he can pull off any pass. So he's a confident lad, but he backs it up with those trophies and those stats. And we will see what happens with Trent Alexander-Arnold. First game back for Liverpool is Wednesday after the international break next week. It's a Merseyside derby against Everton, and they'll inch closer to equalling Manchester United's record of 20 Premier League titles. So he could have yet something to say at Liverpool. Elsewhere, Wales in action. We'll tell you about that in just a second.
Staying connected is vital for business. Sky Business sponsors this report.
I woke up around a little while ago now. It's around 5 o'clock, so I'm about to have some suhoor, which is the last meal that we have before fasting for the whole day. I've got some electrolytes to keep me hydrated throughout the day, and then some vitamins. So I need to make sure that I eat right because we got a match later on in the day against Blackpool. It's currently like 10:50. I'm about to leave my house, make my way to my friends to get a lift in.
Baba, assalamualaikum. How are you? Very good, thank you. Thanks so much for having us here at Nottingham Forest today. Well, we're going to be following you in terms of how you perform at such a high level while you fast. So we can't wait to find out a bit more. But as we kind of walk, what's the first thing on your agenda today?
We've just got a team meeting, pre-match meeting before the game, just to see like the lineup and stuff like that.
Today we'll be really clear. We don't want anything to come through our shape. Scotty, you do front zone. What will you do? You're not.
Sky Business sponsors this report.
Now, if you were stargazing last night, you might have been surprised to see a large glowing spiral appear in the skies over the UK. Let's have a look at the pictures that were captured from last night. There it is. What on earth was that? Well, let's bring in Dr. Jennifer Millard, astronomer and co-host of the Awesome Astronomy podcast. Dr. Jennifer Millard, really good to talk to you, because what on earth is that we're looking at?
It really does look incredible, doesn't it? And so mysterious, because this thing was huge. You know, if we think about the asterism of the plough, which most people are familiar with, it would sort of fill that bowl of the plough. So it was really big, and it appeared over a matter of minutes before disappearing. But this is nothing celestial. It's not aliens, I'm sorry to say, but it is actually...
I thought we had an exclusive there.
Yeah. I wish I could, you know, it would be great fun to know whether there's any other kind of life out there or not for certain. But no, this is all to do with SpaceX and their Falcon 9 rocket.
So how has the rocket created that, Jennifer?
It's a brilliant question. So the story actually begins a couple of hours before this was witnessed. So this was seen over the UK at about 8 o'clock our time, over Europe as well. But 2 hours prior to that, the Falcon 9 had launched from Florida. It was taking some kind of spy satellite for the Americans. And the first stage, that gets that into space, and then it separates after a couple of minutes. But then we've got the second stage of the Falcon 9 rocket, and this is where this plume comes in. So second stage gets that satellite into the orbit that it needs to be in, and then it detaches. And then as it's coming back down to either plop into the ocean or burn up in our atmosphere, they will jettison any fuel that's left on board. And this is to stop any uncontrolled explosions from happening. Then as this gas is let out, the liquid, it turns into a vapor, and then this freezes because it's so high up in the atmosphere. And as it's expanding, this second stage of the rocket is tumbling around, and that's what can then disturb this cloud of vapor that's been generated and create this beautiful spiral pattern. And it's only seen for a few minutes because then the cloud continues to dissipate, it gets more and more tenuous, and then it fades from view. And we have to have everything kind of go right for us to be able to see it. So we have to have the right spin on this second stage of the rocket. We have to have it jettisoned at the right altitude. The sun has to catch it just right. So, the sun is below the horizon for us, but not from the perspective of the rocket. And so, yeah, everything came together just for us to be able to witness it.
Yeah, so beautiful, as you said, almost celestial, but it turns out it's a SpaceX rocket dumping fuel. Beautiful, nevertheless, and an unexpected sight. Incredible that we could see it, even just for a few minutes here over the skies of the UK. Jennifer, thank you so much for talking to us here on the UK Tonight. It's Dr. Jennifer Millard, astronomer and co-host of the Awesome Astronomy podcast. Really good to talk to you, Jennifer. Thank you.
Thanks.
Time for a look at the weather now.
The ideal atmosphere, whatever the altitude. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
Well, if you look up at the skies tomorrow morning, you'll probably just see fog, sadly. Mainly fine once that lifts, but Thursday will bring wind and rain to the north and west. This evening, though, mainly dry with starry skies, but southern and eastern England quite cloudy with some rain possible. That rain fading overnight, frost developing under clear skies, some low cloud, mist and fog around, mainly for parts of England and Ireland.
The perfect climate, whatever the forecast. The weather, sponsored by Qatar Airways.
That's all from us on the UK Tonight. We'll be back tomorrow night at 8 o'clock, so we'll see you then. Up next, it's The World with Yalda.